made. Now the Arabs used to buy their coffee from Africa and Asia, and their sugar from Africa and Asia and consume it. And they send their ships, buy and enjoy that beverage. When Europeans were introduced to this, the Europeans started making their own coffee and their own sugar and started enjoying this. But not only that, they now started selling that coffee and sugar to the Arabs, who now became subservient to the Europeans. Right. And here lies the problem of the Arabs, because they don't have a vision to think like that. It's the faith that pulls them back. Now, if you look at the historical fact, that's absolutely true. That is exactly what happened. Arabs used to like coffee, but they used to buy it from abroad. They introduced it to the Europeans, and when the Europeans discovered coffee, the Arabs ended up buying coffee from the Europeans. But, very, very big but. What happened? How did the Europeans begin to produce their own coffee and sugar? And here is something very, very tremendous for you to understand. That when Europeans decided to make their own sugar and coffee, what they did is they enslaved half of Africa. They took the Africans from Africa as animals to the plantations of West Indies and America, and made them grow the sugar, so excuse the pun, so the white man could enjoy it. It could not be held to a man of faith to suppress and oppress another human being for his benefit. So you can see here the difference of science when it is divorced from faith, what it can lead to. And it took hundreds of years of suffering of Africans before Europeans realized what they were doing. But the price that was paid by humanity for a benefit of a beverage is enormous. So this is what happens when you divorce faith from politics, from your way of life. So this is central ideas which I want you to take on board. Now, now, if you look at the Western ideas, and I want to talk about several other ideas in West. So the Western concept now believes that the West itself has gone too far in certain ideas, and particularly multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is an attack in Europe and in America as well. And the problem with multiculturalism, or those who advocate it, in particularly the philosopher Leo Strauss, who says that the problem with the West now is that because they've now started believing that all cultures have similar values, in other words, they have moral relativism, and we in Europe and in America are trying to bring about these values and debate them, means that we are dissolving some of our own standings and our own beliefs. In other words, their own Western concepts and ideas based on reason. And here, when I say West, don't think of it as somebody who's white in color, because West means any individual, whether it's African, Arab, living in Asia, who believes in reason over faith. This is my idea of West. So don't think of West as in Europeans or Americans, but people whose vision who have put reason over faith. So this is my definition of West. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Now, as I was mentioning to you earlier, Leo Strauss believes that moral relativism has a danger to the Western concept. Because once you accept that other people are equal to you, means that you have to look into their ideas and ideals. Therefore, they could challenge some of your ideas. In other words, moral relativism and multiculturalism is a danger to the Western concept of life. And hence, it has to be stopped. Now, Leo Strauss was not just an ordinary individual. He was very powerful individual. He passed away just very recently. His student was Alan Bloom. Alan Bloom, those who know him, is central to the American author of the curriculums of what is taught at the university level. And he penned the idea that the Western universities, again West beyond color and borders, must ensure that the students are only taught the philosophy and the ideas that emanate from the Western school of thought. In other words, the school of thought of enlightenment that has put reason over faith. To teach us otherwise would mean that we will undermine the very principles upon which the nationhood state has been created. And Alan Bloom's student is called mentioned Bernard Lewis. Bernard Lewis, the student, was chained, big chain. So you can see how these people have become central into the, these superpowers, ideas and ideals, and how they have created the concept of nationhood state, and how they're trying to introduce this idea, and that's why they want to make sure that the Western nationhood state concept is permanent and remains permanent throughout the globe, and that's why they even fight wars in the banner of democracy. But like Leo Strauss, there is a concept of regime change. Sorry. There's a concept of regime change, in which the regime change is not of political order, but it's of social order. That we need to change the concept, the regime of a group of people from what they believe to what the Western concept of reason is. So those who have faith and those who are trying to keep faith in their life must change their regime in which they put reason over faith. And this is a much more comprehensive definition of the regime change rather than the regime change we witnessed in Iraq. We're trying to topple our political leader replacing another leader. So this concept of regime change is much more dangerous for the Muslim Ummah than the regime change that we witnessed in Iraq, or of a political leader. Now, the Western approach on two other aspects are quite important as well. One is of how do you now negotiate with the Muslim community? And the Western world, particularly in the political arena, is based on two things. Either the suppressed Islamists, right, whoever they are, whoever does not accept the parameters and the ideals of the Western concept. And if you can't suppress them through military means, then what you try to do is you move these groups from armed resistance to political arena, into political politics. And the reason they do this is they assume, there's an assumption, unfortunately in Washington and London at the moment, that those who claim to be political Islamic don't have a constituency. In other words, that there are only a few ideologues who do not have the masses behind them. And hence you see what has happened in Palestine, that when Hamas came into power through natural elections, which was imposed by the West, because the West did not believe that somebody like Hamas would come into power, because they felt, they didn't have a constituency, they didn't have a mandate, but they were surprised. But after that, the consequences was that when the West realized that they did come to power through legitimate elections, they tried to isolate them and undermine them. And hence you see the support of the West with a more secular regime within the establishment of the Palestinian community, so that they bring about a petition. And this is fading, unfortunately this is fading. Before I go any further into that, I think we also need to do justice, we also need to look at the Islamic concept and what is happening in the Islamic world. The Islamic political system as well is very, very important for us to understand. We are not a unified, homogeneous society globally, not even in Britain. We come from different parts of the world, a lot of people have different ideas. But in the political arena, divided into 6 categories. And it's my category, so you have a right to disagree or agree with it, or you could add or reduce more. But these 6 categories, one group of the Muslim community is compliant. And by compliant, I mean they comply with the status quo, whether they're residing in this country or any part of the Islamic world, they will go with the flow. They think, provided you can do your parameters of prayer, fine, don't, as I say, don't rock the boat, and we're fine. And there's that group. There's a second group, the Messianic model. The Messianic models are a group of people, of a Muslim community, who believe not necessarily in the end of time, but of an event near the end of time before the whole Islamic concept can be implemented upon them. For example, the Mahdi group of the Shia movement, who believe after the coming of the Imam will the full concept of Islam be implemented. Or to a lesser extent, the Khilafah movement, that only the Hizb al-Tahrir, the only time we implement the full concept of Islamic law is only when the Khalifa comes. So it's a Messianic model.